The views and opinions expressed on this program are not necessarily those of the staff and management of WBBZ TV. It's time for Political Buzz, the television forum to discuss politics and issues of interest for all of Western New York. Now, from the WBBZ television studio at the Eastern Hills Mall, this is Political Buzz.
Hello and welcome to Political Buzz. I'm John DeSciullo here on WBBZ TV. Carl Palladino sworn in as the newest member of the Buffalo School Board representing the Park District, a seat he sought after announcing his candidacy right here on Political Buzz. Now the outspoken developer and former Republican candidate for that seat is ready to get to work. We caught up with Carl Palladino right here in our WBBZ TV studio to find out what his agenda is going to be like, including a very controversial one that's calling for the current superintendent to step down. Let's hear what he had to say.
Last week, John, on Friday morning, I delivered to the Board of Education my initial, I call it my Carl Palladino agenda, which included about 32 specific issues and about 22 motions. I supplemented that on Monday morning with a couple of additional motions and issues. I filed according to all the board rules, and I learned at 12:30 today on Wednesday that Board President Mrs. Nevergold intends to reject just about everything that I sought to introduce. I think that's very unfortunate. Obviously, I don't think she was paying attention during the election. The will of the people is that the board change its ways and try doing something a different way, because what they've been doing up until now has resulted in complete failure. We have 45 out of 57 schools failing. That's a disaster. We have 27,000 kids that under the No Child Left Behind legislation have a right, because they've been going to failing schools, they have a right to choose to go to a better school, a non-failing school. And that right should have been given to them before July 1, the beginning of the next school year, and it wasn't. We have an APPR, an evaluation process that's been promulgated by the state, that here today on July 10th hasn't been complied with, and it can't be complied with because they just don't know how to do it. We have problems throughout the district. We have morale problems in all the constituencies of the Buffalo Public Schools, and we have a board that is oblivious to it, that is now rejecting motions that I intended to make tonight that consider just the tip of the iceberg issues. Here's a board that is planning on meeting tonight, and the next scheduled meeting is on August 21st. There's something tragic about that. They have no recognition of what's being done. They're trying to implement a reorganization plan, but it's never been approved by the board. In the same respect, the evaluation of the superintendent was done completely improperly and should be reconsidered by the new board.
Well, I know there was some concern about that with her. And your concern is that her expertise to run this board is really not there. She came from a situation that didn't give her that kind of pedigree.
Pamela Brown is a nice lady. She has a PhD from Harvard. Beyond that, she has absolutely no experience managing a school district. This is a management job. It's a supervisory job. It's a leadership job. She hasn't led, she hasn't supervised, she hasn't managed. And until a couple months ago, there was nobody managing. When her handlers then figured it out, they appointed a woman named Mary Gwynn, who they brought in from the outside, and we don't even know what her job is. But they brought her in, and she's been actually running the district. So it's not a matter of Pamela Brown trying to keep secrets. Pamela Brown just doesn't understand any of this stuff. It's well beyond her. She doesn't comprehend. She's not doing her job. And in my book, if you're going to do something about a completely dysfunctional district, you have to start with the leadership. You have to start top down. You have to put in place leaders who know how to lead, have the experience, have been there before, and have led before. This board doesn't get it because the the sisters on the board, and I'll call them sisters because they're the four black ladies there who call themselves sisters. These people have maintained that they want to control everything. They want to control the jobs. They want to control a budget that today is $1,020 million. And when you take off the $101 million for charter schools at $12,000 a child for 8,013 children, when you take that off, you get $919 million, and you divide that by 31,151 kids, and you get $29,500 per child that we spend in this district every year. Now compare that with West Seneca, which spends $14,500, and with Cheektowaga, which is roughly $15,000, and St. Francis and Canisius and St. Joe's, which are roughly $14,000, and a Nichols School at $18,500 per year. And tell me there isn't something wrong, something dramatically wrong with these people, and they just don't get it.
Let's talk a little bit about something you just said a little bit ago, the sisterhood. There's no secret that you are outspoken in your opinions and you're laying out your agenda, and you've been criticized for this sisterhood reference. Do you think that some of the rejection of what you're proposing is personal, based on what other people see as your personal attack to the women who are on the school board?
Their response to very meritorious arguments is always the race card. I don't play the race card. I'm talking about 31,151 kids, of which approximately 70% are minorities. I'm talking about focusing on them and not on themselves. I'm talking about doing the job for them, whether it be to go to BOCES, whether it be to form charter schools, whatever the answer is. Focus on the children and stop thinking about themselves. That's what it's about.
What's the reaction been from other people? I know there's some other new members on the school board. What's their reaction to what you've proposed and your interaction with them?
My interaction with them has been very occasional. I don't plot with them. I don't lobby them. I don't scheme with them. I just let people take the facts as I present them and the motions as I present them, and they can vote as they will. It's not my job to lobby them. If they don't get it, fine. That's their position. I will expose everything about this Buffalo Public Schools that I think is wrong. I'll expose it factually, and I'll put it out on the table. And the community better react to it, because this is their one shot to bring this city back. This city can point to that failed school system as the number one reason for the decay and failure of our city. For all the blight in the city, for the loss of the working class from the city, you can blame it all on that school system. And for Phil Rumore and these board members to point at the parents and say that the parents are dysfunctional and not doing their job. These parents are victims of the same dysfunctional school system that their kids are in today, and that is so wrong.
Two quick questions before we wrap up, Carl. You're very aggressive, you're very hardworking, and it seems as if, based on what I just heard and based on what others might perceive, if you don't get your way, if things don't go your way, what are you going to do if things are changed or if something doesn't happen?
Things are going to change one way or another. It's either going to be over a little bit of time until next year's at-large elections, when I think there'll be a majority of sensible people put on the board, or it'll happen by court order, because I'll go into the courts if I have to, or I'll motivate the state legislature to do something, or I'll motivate the state commissioner of education to do something. But one way or another, it's going to change, because we're not going to keep doing this. We're not going to keep abusing 31,000 kids. It's time for them to wake up and recognize that their heyday is over, and they have to face reality.
And one more thing, a prominent political reporter in the Buffalo News was pondering whether or not you might take another run to take over the state as governor. Any truth to that?
No, I have a company that I'm helping my son to run, and I'm very happy with that. And I'm doing my public service right now and sitting on the school board, and it's a magnanimous job, and that's all I'm interested in. So that's what I'm doing.
We'll follow along with you, all right, Carl?
Well, thank you.
We thank Carl Palladino for stopping by and being a regular contributor here on Political Buzz. We're going to continue to follow his work with the Buffalo School Board and how much of an impact it's making. That said, it's time to take a break, and when we come back, find out if Governor Cuomo is really putting the United States in a New York state of mind. This is a commercial you might have seen play on a television near you, not only here in Western New York, but across the country. And it's the hope that people will become, well, let's say, engaged in a New York state of mind. It's a campaign designed to put everybody in that state to maybe bring business to the state, but is it working? You know, New York State does not have the best reputation for doing business. And is there another political hidden agenda on this? We're going to discuss that. Steve Pidgeon is with us, Democratic strategist and attorney for Underberg and Kessler. Steve, welcome back to the show.
Thank you,
good to
John.
see you again. And Phil Arno, the owner of WBBZ TV, had some good thoughts on this. In fact, it was Phil that brought it to our attention that this might be a topic that we want to discuss. So, well, Phil, I'll start with you. What was your concern? Now, you're a television broadcaster, and we certainly air commercials, and this is a commercial about New York State. We're not currently airing the spot, by the way, but what was your concern? Because you saw it when you were out of state.
I was out of state. I saw a commercial for how good New York State is doing with business and kind of scratched my head a little bit because being from New York State, I know that it's not the best of times. And then I started thinking, now, Steve, you've been in politics for a long time, and a lot of times there's hidden agendas. And I'm wondering if anybody is out there across the country thinking about moving a business somewhere, whether it's New York State or Texas or Florida. They're going to see that commercial, they're going to scratch their head, and they're going to say, I didn't know that New York State was doing that well. I'm going to really consider this. Anybody who's serious about moving a business is going to do some research. And they're going to get in on the internet, they're going to do the research, they're going to find out that New York State is number 49 or number 50 in almost every category as far as friendliness to business and economy. So the people who are really going to have businesses to move are not going to be influenced by this ad. When I think about it, the people who really aren't going to be influenced, they're not going to be trying to move a business. Those people, they kind of see a commercial saying that New York State is doing great, fantastic. And they say, gee, you know, Cuomo must be doing a good job up there. And they let it go at that. So the impression out there, New York State's doing very well. Now, the hidden agenda, now this is a $140 million campaign.
Right.
The hidden agenda that I think might be behind this is come election time, if Cuomo wants to run for president, he's got all those people around the country who've seen this ad. Hey, he was doing a great job in New York. You know, that guy deserves our attention. And it's basically a campaign ad to spread the news that Cuomo is such a great governor and has turned New York State around. I'm not sure that $140 million, especially when it came out of a fund to help the Sandy victims from Hurricane Sandy, and it came out of a fund that was earmarked to lower electric bills for New York State residents. I'm not sure that's a wise use of the money.
A lot there, Steve.
Well, there's a lot there, and I obviously respectfully disagree. First off, we are one of many states that advertise in other states for business and tourism and other sorts of commerce. And there has been a change the last 2 years in New York. Before the governor became governor, we had several years where we were kind of seen nationally as a dysfunctional government and a state that was very, very bad for business. And they have worked very hard in the last 2 years to bring in a sense of renewal and do what they can with the property tax cap, with the idea of tax-free zones around the state universities. Because what do we often hear is that we lose companies because of these deals that other states make. Well, we're taking that argument away. You can move your company here and pay no taxes. Another big part of that program that's important is the idea that we've been educating people in this state in a great educational system, and they move away. So trying to keep the university and the people's, the research and the medical corridors and the students that are graduating is a big template and at the center of this plan. Now, I see commercials here with Rick Perry in them, telling people how great Texas is doing, and that and Rick Perry himself is in that commercial. You don't hear Andrew Cuomo's name in that commercial. You don't see Andrew Cuomo's name. In fact, who you see in the Buffalo part of that commercial is Warren Buffett. And I even got a phone call, so I know that it is working, that a client that I do business with in Colorado, because I do a lot of national business, saw the commercial and said, you know, we're actually looking at, they're talking about putting different retail outlets in different parts of the country. And now Western New York is on that list. And now that Western New York's on that list directly because of that commercial, what they're looking at is that there's another story to be told here, that especially about upstate New York. There's as many people, if you take Syracuse to the Pennsylvania border, there's as many people living Syracuse to the Pennsylvania border in New York State as there is in all of Colorado. And it's actually a demographic when you look at incomes and you look at spending power, that there is a market here that's much stronger than has been believed in the past. Because we have had an image in New York State, not over the last 4 years or 2 years or 6 years, but over the past 30 years. We've had a bad image in New York State around the country.
Well,
so I think being able to put out that, hey, take a second look, I think when they do the research, they're going to find that this is a good investment. And why is it that New York's upstate New York has 3 of the top malls in the top 15 malls in the country. So when you do your research, there's obviously spending power here, there's business power here, there's brains here, there's workforce here, there's natural resources here, there's cheap power here. There's a story to be told that hasn't been told. And it's not that New York is a bad place, it's that New York is a good place to have a business and to raise a family.
Well, how about,
so that's the story I think that they're trying to tell.
How about the issue?
It's not an agenda about Andrew Cuomo trying to, he can, there's a lot of things Andrew Cuomo can do to put his name out there, like go on Meet the Press and go on CNN. He doesn't do that. What he's doing is just trying to do the job of governor.
If he goes on those programs, then he's accountable. He can't just say how good it is. He's got to answer questions about how good it is. And things may be turning around. I'm not sure how much they're turning around, but if you go on the internet, if you do the research, you're still going to find those numbers that I mentioned where New York State is like number 49 or 50 out of all the states.
But the reason for that is because of the fundamental disconnect of the image that New York State has. If you do, and if you really study, if you study the demographics, if you study the purchasing power, if you study the market, if you look at what we can offer with tourism, what we can offer with cheap labor, what we can offer with cheap power, it's actually a good investment. But because the perception has been bad, that begs the question. You're answering your own question. Because we're 49, part of that reason is because of the bad perception. We need to change the bad perception. We need to show the country that this is a good place to have a business and to raise a family, and it's a good place to take a vacation.
Well, the perception is one thing, and that's a psychological thing. It's, okay, New York State is unfriendly to business and so on. But the reality is that New York State is, in fact, more regulated than a lot of other states. The taxes in New York State are higher than a lot of other states, most other states, as a matter of fact. I think we're probably the most taxed state in the country.
No,
Maybe California might be ahead of us, but that's not saying a lot.
Right.
So the perception is one thing, but the reality still is that we are overtaxed and overregulated, and whether that's changing or not, it's a fact right now.
We've been working on getting taxes down. We've been working on doing the one-stop shop and to try to get rid of the onerous regulation. But by the same token, if you look at the 3 biggest states, California, Texas, and New York, there's something called quality of life. And in Texas, when they have some of the worst health care, some of the worst child care, some of the worst daycare, some of the worst schools, they tax you less and regulate you less, and you have a chemical plant blow up and take out half a town because there's no inspection there. So there's more regulation in California and New York, but we also have better schools, better quality of life, better infrastructure, and you're not going to have to worry about a chemical plant blowing up in your backyard. So I think there's give and takes in this. But with the question of the $110 million, it's a very small amount to try to change the perception to get business people to take a different look at an investment in New York State. And now I think that's what's happening. And I think when you add that to that, if someone does want to move a new company here, that they have the ability to come into a tax-free zone and even an income tax-free zone, I think that you're going to start seeing New York to continue to be on the move. Now remember, we're trying to do this in the middle of a national recession that has been horribly mismanaged by Washington. But even in spite of that, I think you see New York numbers improving. We understand that where we can work on the taxes and work on the regulation, we're going to do it. But I see nothing wrong with this expenditure, especially. Tell me Rick Perry, who wants to run for president, has a hidden agenda when he's putting himself in the commercial.
Well, I think the governor is in some. He might be in one version of it. It's 140 million too, by the way.
I haven't seen Andrew Cuomo in a commercial.
Right.
You may be right. Rick Perry is advertising, and Chris Christie is advertising New Jersey. A lot of these national ads, these ads that are airing outside of their states, they seem to be by governors that have a political ambition.
Well, didn't
Perry
George
wants to run for president again. Christie might want to run for president. Isn't this just a secret, quiet way of getting a political commercial out there that's going to help their future? The person who's in charge, or one of the people who's in charge of this campaign, is a campaign manager. He was a campaign manager for Mario Cuomo's campaigns. Harvey Cohen is his name. So he's a political campaign manager, and isn't that like placing political ads across the country?
I think it's very important for New York to change the perception of New York in the other 49 states.
Wouldn't that be easier if we actually...
The last that I Love New York that you did, studies have since shown brought a lot of commerce and industry to New York State.
If this was a tourism campaign, I could see the justification. New York City, Niagara Falls, the various Adirondacks, the various attractive places in New York. New York is a beautiful state. But this is a business slanted campaign. This is talking about the economy, not just our natural tourist attractions. So that puts a message out there to the people around the country who are listening that somehow Cuomo is doing a great job with the economy of New York State. And right now, we're still not ranked very, very good. It just doesn't back it up.
We have just about a minute left in this, gentleman. I just want to make sure you know that going in.
Well, I just see that $140 million taken away from the victims of Hurricane Sandy.
Well, I was going to bring that up. Were you aware that money allegedly came from another place?
Well, first off, again, one of the things that the victims of Hurricane Sandy are going to need is a revived economy around the victims of Hurricane Sandy. And $140 million is a very small amount compared to what's the billions of dollars that are coming in. And I think it is to me, it is an expenditure that is well worthwhile. That everybody understands we need to bring jobs here. We need to make changes here. We've done that over the last 2.5 years. We're striving for that, and putting the message out there that, hey, take another look at New York, I think is a positive thing. I'm seeing it even in my own business as I travel, that there are people looking here that might not have thought of looked here before.
Well, I think that whatever is going to happen to improve New York State is going to take time, because it's been a long time coming that we've been poorly run. But I think the more effective way to improve New York State and to improve the image is to reform Albany and to reform the tax laws and the regulation, and to genuinely, as the tax-free zones are a good step, I think. From what I've heard about them, that's going to encourage businesses to come in and work in those areas. But this is something that I think we need to concentrate on in Albany, not in a public relations campaign.
Well,
It takes both.
We'll leave it at that, and maybe at some point, hopefully the governor will be here. Based on your insistence, Steve, we're expecting it.
I'm trying.
And if not, we'll go to Albany to find him, and I'll bring Phil. All right, we have something we can all agree on about political buzz when we come back right after this. Hey, there it is, the WBBZ TV team at the Old Home Days Parade in Williamsville, the Arno family right there, Katie Burden. We had a lot of fun. It was great to see everybody, and thank goodness Phil Arno, our team leader, was driving and had the forethought to bring lots of candy. There's Phil's daughter, Anna, and Katie. We had a great time. We threw candy out to the crowd, and, this is one of the great hometown events that makes Western New York such a great place. And we talked in the previous segment about promoting New York State, and certainly you can't argue that in the summertime, and even in the wintertime, our area is really one of the finest regions to live in. There's great community spirit. And as Phil would say, if we could just figure out that tax issue and straighten out some things in Albany, it would be nirvana. But there it is, and we appreciate everybody coming out to the Old Home Days. And we want to see you at the Taste of Buffalo, because the WBBZ TV Hot Shot Football Toss will be there. We're going to be in Niagara Square this weekend. It's a free throw. You can come in, and if you get it through the target, you win some prizes. It's going to be a lot of fun. Our whole team will be there. It's the first time our TV station is going to be out at this big event. 500,000 people of our closest personal friends will be coming out. And if you stay, we'll even recite lines from Rocky Bullwinkle. And then we wanted to remind you about the next Political Buzz show. We're going to be looking to tape on July 17th in the evening here in our studio. Some issues surrounding the Lancaster Airport. Should expansion there be grounded? We're working on putting a panel together. That's the plan right now. We'll see if that sticks. All right, that's it for Political Buzz here on WBBZ TV. Steve Pigeon, thanks. It was good to see you back on the air with us. Thanks for hanging with us. Phil, of course, we'll see you around the station, I hope. And no lack of ideas from this man right here, and political agenda is on his mind. And we thank you for joining us, and we want your voice to be heard. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, and watch us Friday nights at 7:30 and Sunday morning at 10 a.m. on WBBZ TV.